Now let's now see another library called Butterknife. Now the name itself is quite interesting. Now it's not some library that's gonna massively change how we use to write code with this, but what it'll do is clean up your code that we very repetitively write in our activity. This is very lightweight library, not something that would put weight on your app. So what exactly we can do with this library and how exactly we can use this, let's see. Now how exactly are we dealing with views in our activity? Now what exactly do? We declare views as a part of the class or the activity, and these are all declared as variables, and then in the onCreate method we are finding the corresponding IDs and allocating the views to these variables. So this is the most common site you will find in any activity in the onCreate. If you have a number of views, then the number of these statements, it goes up. Similarly, you got other variables such as strings, you got colors, you got drawable. So they could be corresponding more variables corresponding to each type that you have in your app. If you have an array or some color or some drawable, you'll be having a corresponding variable here, and correspondingly you'll be using get resources.get color or get resources.get string or get string array. All corresponding methods you'll be using to get a reference to that, to your variable in the Java code. Now how it changes with Butterknife. Now what you do here is you use annotations in this case, and you pass in the ID of the UI component that you need to associate with this edit text. And for every view you'd use the method called bindView, and there are corresponding methods for different data types. For booleans, say bindBool; for a drawable, bindDrawable; for a string, bindString; for an array, say bindArray. So we got a number of annotations for different data types. You pass in the ID that you refer to it in the UI, and the corresponding reference variable that you allocate within the activity. And within the onCreate, you just need a single line of code that says you bind and you pass the activity or any view, and accordingly it will use the variables from this. So when I say bind this, so it will look for variables within the activity, and correspondingly the IDs that you pass to the corresponding bind view would be associated to the reference variable. So this is one part of how Butterknife is cleaning up the code. Now let's see the other part. Now the second part is how you deal with events. Now we've seen we can handle events by an anonymous class that you can associate with the listener. As we do here, for an on-click listener, we can say set on-click listener, and we pass some anonymous class which acts as a click listener. Or the second is that we can associate an on-click within the XML file, and we can associate a method with this. That method we can write within the activity. So these are two approaches that we can use. Problem with these is within an anonymous class, there's a lot of cluttering of code. So it's not very clear, and not everybody is able to write an anonymous class, not very comfortable to write with. In the second approach, sometimes it's not clear which UI component is associated with this method. So that, because since the binding comes from the XML file, so either you put on a comment or it doesn't clear how it is associated with any view. So the only change in this case that comes with Butterknife is that within the activity itself, you can say on click, you pass in the ID, and then this method gets associated with the on click of this component. Now what more you can do here is that you can even pass a type button to this method called attempt login, and then you can use this within the method attempt login. So this can also be extended so that this same method is used for on click on a number of buttons. So that we'll see when we write code, actual code, how we can do that. So this Butterknife, it is designed, or The purpose of this is to reduce the code that you repetitively use for finding views, and also to reduce, to have more clarity on the event that you associate with the UI components. So let's get down to code and see how we can actually use this in our activity.